On a fairly regular basis, I am asked what Unitarian Universalism is. Over the years, I've developed a fairly standard pitch in response. I say that we are a faith tradition without a strict set of beliefs. We welcome everyone from Christians to atheists, Buddhists to Jewish folks, so long as we are all committed to love and justice. Our theological diversity is perhaps our most distinctive quality. Sure, we are progressive, but so are many other religions. We are democratically run without a pope or bishops or hierarchy, but that is not so rare. What stands out is that we have no creed, no doctrine, and no dogma. When I tell people this, what most surprises them is often the part about the atheists. Sometimes people don't skip a beat, which is cool. They think it's awesome that we're a community where you don't have to believe in any one particular thing. Other times, though, people misunderstand. They think we are being nice, letting atheists into our church. The implication is, like Jesus sitting with the lepers and the prostitutes, we welcome atheists as an act of mercy. Lost souls to save. An evangelical relative of mine once told me, for example, from a place I think of great generosity, that I was here to save atheists, that God had a special plan for me, even if I didn't know it. All of you, and not just all of you, every atheist in the world, and bring them back to the truth and to God. She didn't understand that I wasn't here with a plan. I wasn't here because we simply tolerate atheists. Nor are we playing some long game to convert atheists unsuspectingly. Whether you're an atheist or agnostic or unbeliever, those folks are welcome here as much as anyone else. There is no hierarchy here of belief. In fact, a slim majority of Unitarian Universalists identify themselves as non-theists. Sometimes when people understand the true nature of our theological diversity, when I try to explain that and they understand it, sometimes they just don't like it. For those who have more traditional notions of religion, the idea that atheists might be religious feels like a contradiction in terms. Isn't church by definition about believing in God? What do you do in worship, then? What do you pray for? You can't really be religious. I've got similar pushback from atheists themselves. Why would they ask, want anything to do with organized religion if they didn't believe in God? Now, I will grant that many atheists and agnostics and non-believers have justifiable reasons to be skeptical of religious communities. The loudest voices of religion are often destructive and closed-minded, often adhering to outdated traditions. They are often anti-science, denying things like the climate crisis, are often patriarchal and homophobic. Atheists have seen the shallow attempts of pastors to perform authenticity. They've seen priests preach falsehoods for their own ego and gain. So in many ways, it's no surprise that atheists and agnostics and non-believers stay away, that the word church is toxic. Even our founders here at Fourth Universalist Society, wary of the stigma of the word church, called us a society. Instead, it was not an accident. And in many ways, that is a better, more inclusive word, because we are not a church. We are not a Christian community, even though some of us are Christian. We as a whole are not. It is, I believe, possible to make the argument that religion has actually done a tremendous amount of good in the world. Religion was behind the civil rights movement of the 1960s, grounded in the black church. The suffrage movement took inspiration from the social gospel movement, and even marriage equality, just a few years ago, was first legalized in Massachusetts because 2 Unitarian Universalist women filed a lawsuit. So there is good in religion. But perhaps the biggest reason we don't often imagine atheists and religious communities going together is that we live in a society that believes that a belief in God is what being religious is all about. And there's a reason for why so many of us believe that. It's because we live in a largely Protestant country. And in Protestantism, beliefs are what matter. Protestants are told just believe, just have faith. Martin Luther, who started the Reformation, the Protestant Reformation, spoke about salvation through faith alone. If you have faith in God, if you believe, you will be okay. If you don't or cannot believe, you might be in trouble. And of course, the reason why Luther had to stress this all the way back hundreds of years ago and make such a big deal about this belief was that it was actually kind of a new thing at the time. It was a very particular way of understanding religion. Many religions don't care very much at all what we do or do not believe. I encountered this firsthand when I was studying in seminary to become a minister. I was doing an internship as a chaplain at a Catholic nursing home where most of the residents and clergy were Catholic, as well as most of the other seminarians, except for 2 very hardcore Anglicans, who would proudly proclaim that they were more Catholic than the Pope himself, which caused many eye rolls on the part of the Catholics there. Now, my Catholic seminarian friends were there. They didn't quite know what to do with me as a Unitarian Universalist. They had never heard of what that was. When I told them, it didn't quite make sense. It was a different paradigm. But they did approach it with genuine interest and respect. And they saw that I would often attend the Catholic services that were held there with residents that I was caring for. I was at these Catholic services enough that it stood out, enough that they started talking to me about it. They asked, why would you as a Unitarian Universalist go to Mass, even if you didn't have to? After all, it's not your religion. You couldn't even participate. Why would you go? I didn't have some kind of groundbreaking answer for them. I told them that I simply enjoyed it. I found a lot of meaning in the repetition and ritual, in the singing and the chants, the daily scripture readings that followed an ancient and worldwide calendar, and even appreciated the practice of Holy Communion, even though, as a non-Catholic, I couldn't take it. Attending those services every day connected me to something deeper and made me, frankly, a better chaplain. I think my friends were surprised because they knew I wasn't a Christian. They knew I didn't believe in the doctrine, in the dogma, in the resurrection, in the blood and the wine, and not certainly in the Catholic God. And yet, despite what they knew about what I believed, it was the start of a low-key, good-hearted campaign on their part to convince me to become a Catholic priest. It was sweet, in a way. And of course, I protested for obvious reasons. I don't believe in what you preach. And they told me not to worry. It's your actions that matter, not what you think. Now, I don't know if they would actually let me be a priest. But despite this, their sincerity and their conviction that I would fit in with them and their flock was really surprising. But it made sense because there are a lot of religions out there that de-emphasize belief. Certainly, Buddhism requires no belief in God. In many earth-centered traditions, the divine is often more grounded in the world around us than in some otherworldly realm. In the Jewish community, there are humanistic strands that celebrate the Jewish tradition and culture more than the theology. And all of those traditions, it is possible to be part of their religious communities without believing in God. There are atheist Buddhists and atheist pagans and atheist Jews. Religion is not always about belief, but often about something else entirely. The challenge, then, is to determine what religion is actually about. And that is a hard, unanswerable, age-old question. Various thinkers over the years have tried their very best to answer that question. Emil Durkheim, the great founder of sociology, for example, argued that religion's purpose was to build bonds of society and community, to let us trust each other by a shared set of practices and belief, an almost evolutionary function to serve and ensure our survival. On the other side, Karl Marx argued that religion was a system of power, a tool used by the powerful and the elite to keep us all controlled. For Sigmund Freud, it was akin to a childhood neurosis, an illusion to give people a sense of significance in their life, a connection to something that wasn't their parents anymore, but something greater, the substitute. And for many anthropologists, it was how early societies explained the mysteries of the world. Why does it rain? Why are animals the way they are? And religion today was a historical leftover of these attempts to explain the natural world. They were leftovers like our tailbone from our pre-science days. I think that if we look critically, there are truths embedded in all these theories of religion. Religion can be all these things, but I think they all err in believing that religion can be summed up as only one thing, that it's a neat thing you can tie up and say, boom, this is what religion is. It didn't occur to them that religion might exist not because of some phenomenon, but because it is real to people in some deep, embodied, authentic way. It was obvious, perhaps, that none of them have ever had what some of us might have had, a sense of deep spiritual life, some experience that draws us deeper within ourselves or into the larger world, that can't simply be explained away by some theory. As much a part of the human experience as anything else, that religion is inherently part of being alive as a person. As much as our love of families, much as our attempts to build friendships, to search for purpose in our work, to celebrate the seasons changing, we feel something spiritual, something religious, something that draws us to ask big questions. Now, we can decide whether we want to call ourselves religious or whether we want to be part of a religious community. But religion in its broadest sense, if we get out beyond that narrow sense of belief, religion can be something that we all do all the time. Being religious means wrestling with what it means to be human, how to live and live well. It means trying to find a home in this universe that offers us this great and profound opportunity for happiness and peace and understanding, but that it also threatens at the same time great suffering and loss and grief. And it's so hard to find out how to make our way through that, how to balance those two realities, how to balance a universe that is both intimate to us, that we know on a deeply personal level, and yet that we can never fully understand or grasp. That mess, that understanding and confusion, that sense of great possibility and love and freedom and suffering still. Figuring that out and living in that is what religion is all about. It's what unites traditions across time and place. Maybe we come to this religious community at Fourth Universalist because it helps to be with others, pure and simple, because life can be lonely sometimes. Maybe we found that the intentional practice and conversation and centering helps us get through the week. Maybe we found that as a parent, we want our kids to have the tools to be able to talk about the things that they're wondering about, face the big questions of life, and so we bring them here to learn. We don't need God to believe in God to do any of those things. All we have to do is be willing to be honest about our humanity together. If religion was a tree, our humanity would be the roots and the trunk, something that no matter what we believe, we all share together. Our beliefs about God, about other metaphysical things, about salvation, about sin, those are like the branches and the leaves. They are real and they are important to us. They come out of our humanity like branches come out of a trunk. That is what unites us. It is that humanity, the trunk and the roots. Now, back in the nursing home, when I was working as a chaplain, I would see this each and every day. I remember doing rounds, and a part of the hospital that was where the skilled nursing center was, the rehab center, where people would come to recover, where they needed intensive care. I walked from room to room one day, and eventually I came to a room where I knew someone had just moved in. I knocked, and the door was open with some hesitation by a woman in her 60s. She was by far the youngest person I had met there and had just recently arrived. I introduced myself, as I would, and shared that I was a chaplain. She did not smile when she heard that. She did not fully open the door and politely told me, "Thanks, I'm okay. I'm not religious." My first instinct was to explain that, well, I was a UU, and many UUs don't consider themselves religious, so we'll probably get along just great. And then I realized that would probably take 5 or 10 minutes, and she would still not want to talk to me. Instead, I explained that as a chaplain, my job was not to talk about theology or beliefs. It was simply to check in and see how she was doing. I saw her considering this, pondering it, sizing me up. And she opened the door just enough that I could see in her room. She started to explain her situation, why she was there, how it was going. She had fallen from a ladder trying to clean her gutters and broken her leg. She was stuck there for maybe more than a month, she said, to do physical therapy, unable to walk by herself. Despite her initial claims that she was doing just fine, I would find out that her time in the rehab center was far from that. She was struggling. She had never thought of herself as old, but being there in that nursing home was deeply unsettling to her. She was surrounded by elderly people in her mind, many of whom were actively dying, many who were in the depth of memory loss and confusion. She would hear them calling out, sometimes late at night when she was trying to sleep, believing they were somewhere else in some other time, sometimes desperately calling for help or for their mothers who had long past died, as if they were in some terrible trouble and needing saving. In that scary place, she was mostly alone, except for a doctor or therapist visit once a day, with too much time to think about what her role was in that place. Was this her future? Was she at that stage? Was this what awaited her? She felt too young for all of this, too vibrant. She'd been climbing a ladder a few weeks ago. And it brought back memories of her own parents who had died themselves in a place like that, and all the grief she felt back then. At the heart of her feelings was fear of change, of aging, the unknown, and ultimately of death. And there was grief of losing the life that she had loved, of losing her good health and the comfortable confidence that she had always carried, that the end was far, far away. So often when I was a chaplain, I wished that I could solve the problems of those people who I spoke to, that I could say, it would be fine. It's going to be okay. I really wish I could have, but the reality was that as a chaplain, not even as a doctor who could prescribe medication, all I could do with her in that moment was assure her that whatever she was facing, even if this was the beginning of a scary chapter of her life, she wasn't alone, and that it wasn't hopeless. I would like to think that even though she wasn't religious, even though she claimed that she had no desire for a chaplain, a soon-to-be ordained minister, that chaplain made her stay a little bit better. She would ask me to stop by again, and our conversations continued as long as we were there. It wasn't because of me. It was because the nature of what religion does is to speak to the humanity within us, whether you believe in God or are just a person trying to understand the life that you lead. Here at Fourth Universalist, we do our very best to broaden our understanding of what religion means. If we don't do that, we will exclude people like that woman in the nursing home. We will exclude people like Colin, who is an atheist. We'll exclude people like me. And I bet we'll exclude a good number of you. Religion has to be about the simple things. We all know what it feels like to love and to be loved and to want to be loved. We all know what it feels like to lose someone we care about, to feel disappointment that maybe our lives aren't where they should be, but also tremendous joy when the things that we most yearn for come to life in the real world. And it is in that shared knowledge, in that shared experience, we come united. We have to learn to embrace this magnificent religious diversity and find our home within it. Together here, we practice this being human together. We can still be skeptical of many different kinds of religion, and there is lots to be skeptical about religion together. I wouldn't be a Unitarian Universalist if I didn't believe that. But we can also learn, and must learn, that religion is ours to define. No one can tell us what it is or isn't. No one can tell us that we can't be here. We get to be true to ourselves and what we believe. God or not, faith or not, creed or not. That is our religion. May we learn to embrace it as our own. Amen.